I said I wouldn't review this movie. Pretty sure I said that on camera, at least once. And yet, here we are. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about aliens. Before we start, for those not in the know, I don't like to look at xenomorphs. They freak me out more than pretty much any other creature from a science fiction or horror movie. Everything about them terrifies me. That's why I always said I'd never review this. To review a movie, it's really best if I include pictures for visual aid. And to do that, I have to get the pictures, and I have to edit them into the video file, and that means I have to look at them. And while there are some scary monsters that I've managed to desensitize myself to, the xenomorph is not one of them. The thing is, I want to talk about this movie, and it needs a solo review because I have more to say about it than I think would fit in a What Else I Saw video. So, I don't know how this is gonna work, and I haven't gotten my pictures yet, so I'm sweating about how I'm going to manage that, but let's see if I can review aliens without actually showing aliens. The 1986 film Aliens was written and directed by James Cameron and is a sequel to 1979's Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. Sigourney Weaver reprises her role as Ellen Ripley, and the film picks up sort of where that film left off, only 57 years later, when Ripley and Jonesy the cat are found in hypersleep by a space salvage team. Later, when Ripley is debriefed on what happened to the crew of the Nostromo, recounting the events of the first film, the veracity of her story is doubted, and she's ostracized. But when contact is lost with a 30-year-old colony on LV-426, the very moon where Ripley's crew encountered the first facehugger, she's persuaded to join a team of Marines on a mission to find out what's happened at the settlement. What they find is not good. I first heard high praise for this movie when I was working on a screenplay project in 12th grade. I was studying books on screenwriting and kept coming across references to aliens in discussions of character development, and I was intrigued. Another title that kept coming up, actually, was Terminator 2: Judgment Day, also a James Cameron film. I didn't seek out aliens at that time, though, because I already knew it would be a problem for me. I already knew what the aliens looked like, and I said, nope, no thanks. Fast forward a bit, I just happened to end up watching the first movie, Alien, on TV, and was surprised by how much I liked it, even though it terrified me and I had nightmares, and that wasn't fun at all. My curiosity, though, was piqued, and eventually I rented Aliens from the library. Ended up with a DVD with a nice big close-up of the alien on the cover. Almost had a heart attack when I pulled that off the shelf. I was like, and I had to use 2 other DVDs as a sandwich to get it out of there and to carry it through the library and through the checkout. I probably looked like a nut, but it was absolutely important to me that I keep it covered at all times. And I know that to some of you watching this, all of this sounds ridiculous. But let me tell you, if someone confesses something frightens them, you have no business telling them, that's not scary, just because it isn't scary for you. I'm sure there are things that you're afraid of that I don't think are such a big deal, but I'm not going to judge you for it. Anyway, I finally watched Aliens, and it was the extended version. My mom and I watched it together at 11 o'clock in the morning. That was my idea, because I was hoping that if we watched it early enough and in broad daylight, it wouldn't bother me so much, and I wouldn't have any trouble going to bed at night. That didn't work. Still was spooked, even after so many hours. Came up to go to bed and, saw xenomorphs jumping out at me in the darkness. But it's a testament to how good the movie is and how much I enjoyed it that I was itching to see it again a few years later. And when I saw it was on Amazon Prime, expiring May 31st, which is in just a couple of days, it seemed like the right time. Plus, I wouldn't have to risk dealing with a scary DVD cover. So, here are my thoughts on Aliens and the things that make it such a big deal that people still refer to it as a high watermark today. First off, it's got strong, memorable characters and people you care about, except for that one guy. The visual and creature effects are phenomenal, yet unlike what happens in a lot of lesser movies, they never force the characters to take a back seat. They don't overshadow them, they complement them. Sigourney Weaver's Ripley is not one of the best action movie protagonists ever just because she's a woman and she ends up wielding a gun and she outlasts the men. This is not hollow girl power. That doesn't make a character strong or likable or impressive. Ripley is a survivor whose horrific memories are still heavy on her mind. She's outraged that people don't believe her testimony or take her warnings seriously, but she's also plagued by nightmares and unnerved by the slightest unexpected noise or touch. She's barely had time to recover, and she's on edge. The moment she enters the complex, I observe to my mom that she looks like me entering the snake house at a zoo. That same paralyzing apprehension in her expression and body language. That's what makes her arc so powerful. She knows better than anyone what the xenomorphs are capable of, but she overcomes the terror that restrains her, not to save her own skin, but to come to the aid of others. It does not sit well with her to abandon those in trouble, so she forces herself to take action, multiple times, facing her fear with a fierce determination, and always keeping her wits sharp. I do feel this Ripley is an improvement on the character in the first film. There, Ripley was smart, resourceful, a cooler head that prevails, but I find her more mellow here, maybe because Weaver herself was 7 years older. The character seems warmer, more human, more relatable, and therefore, for me, more likable. A lot of these traits manifest themselves in the way she interacts with other people, which brings us to the wonderful character of Newt, the little girl they find hiding at the complex. When Ripley, triggered into action by sight of the little girl, goes diving after her and follows her to her hiding place, Newt cowers in the corner, her eyes not just frightened, but vigilant. She's watching Ripley closely, and I realize it's probably because this little girl has seen people she thought were okay go into convulsions and have an alien burst out of their chest. Like Ripley, Newt doesn't trust easily. She's quick-thinking and practical. She assesses a group of strangers and identifies who's the most reliable. And she's studied the enemy. She and Ripley are two of a kind, sole survivors who have witnessed the same unspeakable horrors and are now working through mental and emotional trauma and contending with the ignorance, recklessness, or selfishness of other people. For Newt, Ripley will do what before seemed unthinkable, and she'll do it purposely and calmly without hesitation. In the extended version, it's revealed that Ripley left a daughter of her own behind on Earth, a little girl about Newt's age, and in her absence, that daughter has aged and died. To me, this gave further significance to their instant connection to the bond that grows between them, and it also helped explain Ripley's nurturing side, which was not something we saw in the first film, outside of her interactions with Jonesy the cat. Incredibly, 10-year-old Carrie Henn had zero acting experience when she was cast, and hasn't appeared on screen in a film since. I love her performance as Newt. She's so cute and charming and funny, And I love that Cameron didn't just have her remain catatonic and mute until the end of the film, as has happened in many other films. It actually doesn't take that long for her to start talking to Ripley, and she's surprisingly witty and playful, and their chemistry is perfect, it's natural. For a violent and intense action movie to center around an endearing, adoptive mother-daughter relationship like this is unusual, and it elevates and transforms the work into something greater than just a space alien combat movie. This isn't the only character-developing relationship in the film, though. Take Ripley's relationship with Bishop, the android.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Played with perfect nuance and understanding gentility by Lance Henriksen. Given her previous experience, Ripley is suspicious of androids, and there are a couple times when we're not sure about him either. I remember when I saw Alien the first time, I was stunned by the android element. I had no idea that was going to be part of the movie, and the way you find out, if you don't know it's coming, is shocking. I like the understated way both films explore the possibilities of artificial intelligence and the internal and external conflict of human versus machine, which became a running theme in the franchise. What's funny is that Bishop is one of the more empathetic characters, having a stronger sense of compassion, duty, and optimism than some of the humans. In the first half of the film, Ripley's interactions are mostly with Paul Reiser's character Burke, the company man who seems like a decent, understanding guy, but is actually a worm. Paul Reiser did a good job here. In the second half of the film, most of her interactions, aside from those with Newt, are with Michael Biehn's character, Corporal Hicks. These colonial marines are kind of like a Dirty Dozen crew. They're tough, sarcastic, insolent space desperado types. They have little respect for authority and spend most of their downtime razzing each other with some cheesy dialogue that I think is the only real weakness in the script. You feel bad for them, though. They have not been briefed at all on what they're about to face. Hicks is observant, but doesn't really distinguish himself as much as some of the other Marines, including Bill Paxton's goofball Private Hudson, until they arrive at the colony and go into combat mode, and the situation changes. Between Ripley and Hicks, there gradually develops a cute little, hey, I kinda like you thing, but the flirtation comes after they've earned each other's respect. She recognizes in him the qualities of responsible and dependable leadership, and he rises to the occasion. She stands up for his authority, and he in turn gives the order that they do exactly as she's recommended. There's an unspoken appraisal and appreciation there, and from that point on, it's assured they're on each other's team. Plus he's kind to Newt, and that's nice to see. Thanks to James Cameron's screenplay and the editing, the film has nearly perfect pacing. Something's happening every moment. The pauses between tense sequences are just long enough for you to catch your breath, and there's a fluid sense of escalation from start to finish. There are also few dispensable lines of dialogue. Most of what's said is important in one way or another, and that includes little things that set up key moments later in the film. It makes sense that Ripley goes from having no gun training to being able to take on the Queen single-handedly because we see Hicks teaching her how to use his weapon. We know she's good with the power loader because of that scene where she shows off what she can do, which also serves a dual purpose. Hicks is impressed, therefore he starts to take her seriously, therefore when she starts issuing commands at a pivotal moment, he's inclined to follow her instruction. Another example is when we're warned about the potential for explosion, and of course, that comes up again later. The film also looks phenomenal. The visual effects convey space in all its mystery, even while ship and space station designs show humans are well on their way, so they believe, to conquering this final frontier. Props, models, futuristic vehicle designs, exterior shots are all expertly put together, and if the interiors at the colony complex are surprisingly well lit, that helps to show off the authenticity and detail of the set design, particularly in the area of the Xenomorph hangout, which has that quintessential alien movie look. Okay, let's talk about the xenomorph in the room. The first movie has just one, with the famous tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream." The second movie has the tagline, "This time there's more." And ain't that the truth? The xenomorphs are powerful, smart, and relentless, and they're designed to look far from human, far from anything we can relate to. There are elements, perhaps, of other species we can identify with, but not one individual thing we can say, oh, they're like that. And they're purposely not humanoid. Sure, they have limbs and a head, teeth, lots of teeth, and a permanent grin with jut out, another set of teeth in there when they open their mouths. It's so freaky. The biggest thing, though, and I've seen other people talk about this, is that they don't appear to have eyes. It's said that eyes are the window to the soul. That's how we connect with each other, how we can read someone, anticipate their intentions, and in a hostile situation, try to diffuse it by appealing to the heart through the eyes. You can't do any of that with a xenomorph. Not at all. I will say this, and I'm not trying to brag here, I did see more of the aliens this time than I did the first time around. The first time I watched it, during any of the scary parts, I was basically watching like this. But the second time, I kept my hands down and I was more just kind of like turned away and like peeking. By the end of the movie, I was pretty stiff, especially because I spent the entire climactic sequence with the Queen just sitting hunched over like that. It was so much fun. The original xenomorph design from the '79 film was created by Swiss artist H.R. Giger. Creature and makeup effects whiz Stan Winston built on that design and added to the lore by making the Queen, who's like a regular xenomorph on steroids. Really mean, really big, really scary, and with a really big head thing, whatever that is, I don't know. Also really smart and a fitting big boss for the final showdown, which is essentially a battle between two protective mothers. And no, I'm not going to quote the famous line. You know what I do quote from this movie, though, is Bill Paxton's, "Game over, man! Game over!" You've got to respect the Queen's cunning and intelligence. I mean, she figures out the elevator. And here's something I think I might have missed before. In the scene where Ripley finds all the eggs, it seems to me it's the first time a human and a xenomorph communicate. Ripley torches one of the facehugger pods. The Queen, seeing what she's capable of with the flamethrower and wanting to protect her nest, indicates to her drones to stand down with the unspoken agreement with Ripley that she'll let them go in exchange for their not harming the rest of her eggs. And that's about to happen until Ripley gets that look on her face and decides, nah. I do think it's a tiny bit of a letdown that the resolution is as similar as it is to the one in the first movie, but that's another minor quibble, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Another thing I need to talk about is James Horner's score. Talking about the main title music specifically, it starts out with sustained tones and militaristic snare drum rolls, which is extremely eerie, and then there are suspended cymbals and a sound like an unearthly cry that crescendos and is chilling, and then there's a pause of silence, and then the main theme comes in, which is spooky and foreboding, but somehow also delicate and almost wistful. And then it changes gears, and I think I heard a possibly muted trumpet and a flutter-tongued flute. That's really different. And more percussion is added in. Sounded like marimba, maybe, and bells, and the thing that I always want to call the clavicle, which it isn't because that's a bone. You pick up on some really interesting instrumentation if you listen to the score separately. There are a couple points also where I can tell, yep, this is the same composer who wrote the music for Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Both compositions convey a sense of wonderment, adventure, suspense, and danger. It's just a great soundtrack, rich in texture and sensation, even though it's not always restful, easy listening music. Aliens picked up 2 Academy Awards, one for Best Sound Effects Editing and one for Best Visual Effects. It got nominations for Best Actress, Best Art Direction, Best Sound, Best Editing, and Best Score as well. The film also won a BAFTA for Special Visual Effects and got a bunch of Saturn Awards from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. In anticipation of someone asking what I think of later films in the franchise, I can do without all of them. I've seen some of 3, some of Resurrection, a good deal of both Alien vs. Predator films, all of Prometheus, and most of Covenant, and I think they should have just stopped at 2. Alien 3 especially bothers me because I really like the ending of this movie, and Alien 3 takes that ending and basically goes, so, nah, I'm all set with that. The first 2 films, though, are classics, and it's one of those rare cases where the sequel is just as good as the original. I'm not going to get into the argument over which one's better because they're both so different. They're both science fiction, but Alien is more of a horror film, and Aliens is more of an action film. They excel in tandem. It's also hard to say which movie has been more influential. Alien has been referenced over and over again in later movies and just in pop culture. But there have been a lot of movies that took inspiration from Aliens or tried to imitate it. As for personal preference, I think I'm going to go with this one, Aliens. I enjoy the character development and the relationships. Surprise, surprise. There's the main arc, but also little arcs for supporting characters, where individuals make up for previous bad decisions or poor behavior by stepping up and going above and beyond the call of duty. The look and feel and sound of the entire thing is excellent. It can be viewed as an exhilarating space adventure, or it can scare the heck out of you. And the expansion of what the first movie started means more aliens, more firepower, more space, more everything, including more heart. I think I'm going to end it there. Those are my thoughts on Aliens, a movie I never had any intention of attempting to review. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have seen this film, and I bet a lot of you have, please go ahead and share your thoughts on it in the comments below. I look forward to reading them, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.